All right, cool. Swivel, follow me. Yeah, it's working now. Just don't mess it up this time. All right, it's on you. All right. Terms on the board, you can hit pause, zoom in, and see them all, but last time I moved that thing, it got all weird. So, again, as always, the presentation's on ITSL. We'll take a look at the standards and things that we've got to hit here. We've already knocked out the origins of the Cold War. We've talked Truman and containment. Today we get into a lot of fun stuff. We're really kind of leaving the 40s, getting into the 50s. We're going to talk about Ike, the diplomatic strategies that we've got going on there. We'll talk about what's going on in China. We'll talk about what's going on in Korea. We're not yet in Vietnam and Japan. All right, so again, largely today is going to be Truman and Eisenhower. We will also pick up on the Second Red Scare and McCarthyism. And throughout the whole thing, we've got this impact of the Cold War going on. In terms of the 1950s, we're gonna get hedging in to the modern civil rights movement with a lot of this stuff over here. There's a lot going on, right? There's a lot going on. Creating some type of table or chart or something that kind of lists out the presidents and civil rights, the economy, foreign policy, the Cold War, all these things. We'll probably do something like that during Raider time and feel good about ourselves because it is Wellness Wednesday. And what makes you feel well, quite like great mustaches and flowcharts, right? Right? Cool. Yeah. Moving on. We talked about Truman in office. We talked about integrating the military. We talked about the integration of sports. Why is society not on board all the way yet?
Still in Plessy versus Ferguson.
Yeah, we're still in Plessy versus Ferguson. And clearly you have messed my swivel up. The swivel game is not too strong today. So we'll just turn it. Boom, look at that. There. That's what you get to look at, swivel. Hey, swivel. The company. Your machine's buns. Alright? Buns, hun. We talked about the post-World War II era. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. I got busy talking to all my fans on the World Wide Web. What's wrong, or what's going on in society? Why are we still kind of being held back?
Segregation.
Yeah, we're still in a Plessy versus Ferguson time period. All right, we talked about our World War II world order and how the way that World War II ended is going to cause a tremendous amount of friction, specifically between the Allied powers here at the conclusion of the war. All right, why do I give you these CWAs? So that we can understand what policy?
Containment.
Containment, okay? And that's the big thing. Remember, we talked already, the Berlin airlift. The Berlin airlift reaffirms which CWA? Well, the communists are cowards, and we've got to press them. The Marshall Plan exhibits what idea?
Supporting non-communists.
We must support non-communists. We also must do what? Well, the prevention of the dominoes is there the whole time. Remember when Truman says we must get tough on the Soviets. Are we going to compromise with the Marxists? No. And so we see him really start to layer in thick very early. Now, what was the Marshall Plan? There you go. And again, that's your whole domino effect. Marshall Plan morphs into the Truman Doctrine. Truman Doctrine was concerned with what two countries? Turkey and Greece. These two down here. And so we can see that the shift of where we want to contain communism goes from not just Western Europe, but into Southern Europe as well. teapot. Got in unscathed this time. This time. Alright?
I was gonna. I thought you were about to pull up to the door like this.
Yeah. So, yeah, we get that going on. What are we doing for Greece and Turkey? Give them a lot of money. All right, and then we go into containment. Is containment ever specified how we're going to do this?
No.
No. All right, and that's why I give you those CWAs. All right. We talked about HUAC. What does HUAC stand for?
House activity.
And what is the job of HUAC?
To rat out the communists.
Is it illegal to be communist?
No.
No. However, if you are labeled a communist by HUAC, what happens to you?
Your black becomes.
Yeah, you become very uncomfortable. A lot of people get blacklisted, and we even talked about this young buck here. Who's that? Why is the double R getting pulled into HUAC?
He's in Hollywood.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, and Hollywood's full of liberals! And those, of course, are communists. I mean, don't you watch the news at all? Yeah, we talked about Alger Hiss and HUAC's Hiss hearing. Alger Hiss, clerk in the Supreme Court, works in the State Department, alleged communist. He says he's not. Who becomes the shining star?
Nixon.
Nixon. Okay, and Nixon again is that dog on a bone, and he is going to not let it go. And then they find some evidence that is damning to Alger Hiss, and Nixon is going to use this attention to start to build his national political resume. All right. We talked about 48. We got Truman versus Dewey, and then Strom Thurmond. Who is Strom Thurmond representing? The Dixiecrats. And who are the Dixiecrats? Who are against civil rights. Good. All right. And we see that Truman wins fairly easy. It's a close electoral vote, but in terms of, a close popular vote, but electorally, it's a comfortable win. All right. We talked about Truman's first deal, or his first term, his fair deal. Largely, this is a continuation of what? There you go. Housing. What are we going to do for housing? Yeah, federal project housing starts in what would we say that was 49? I think so. Minimum wage is going to go up in 49, and people start talking about civil rights. All right, Congress is talking about civil rights. Is it getting through Congress?
No.
No. What is still shaping our reality?
Plessy
versus Ferguson. Okay. Now, here's the fun stuff. Okay, here's the fun stuff. Everything gets a little sketch in 49 here. Okay. In 1949, China goes red. Okay, China goes red. China was led by this guy, Mao Zedong. All right, Mao is going to lead a communist revolution. He is going to defeat Xing, and Xing was our friend. All right, why did we support Xing?
He wasn't
Because he's not communist. Okay, but this is a movement of the people. Xing was, in varying shades a tyrant. All right, is it okay that we support tyrants?
Yes.
As long as they are not communist. All right. And so Mao takes over, and our response is very muted. Okay, our response to China going red is very muted, and the Republicans are going to start charging that Harry Truman is soft on communism. All right. Do you want to be labeled soft on communism?
No.
No. And so when the next domino theoretically falls, Truman feels like he's got to really throw everything he's got. Okay? He's not going to have to wait long because the dominoes, they just keep falling. All right? Now, before we get into the Korean War, I want to do a who's who. All right? We are, as we roll through this... As we roll through these, this whole presentation, we've got a lot of events going on. There's a lot of leadership changes, and I'm going to be using a lot of people's names. And so occasionally we'll stop and do a who's who, so we know, we can put faces with names. All right? Who's this handsome mustachioed dude? Stalin, leader of? The Soviet Union. Good. Now, Stalin's on his way out. Okay? He's on his way out. By the time that the whole Korean issue is done, this guy's going to be in. Anybody know who this is? Khrushchev. Okay? This is Khrushchev. Khrushchev. I think that's Khrushchev. I don't know. My Russian weak. All right? But he's going to be the guy who's going to end up being in that leadership role, and we'll continue to see him all the way through the mid-60s. Okay? Who's this guy?
Mao.
Yeah, Mao likes high fives. Can't high five this board like you used to back in the day. All right? Yeah, he likes high fives, and he's the leader of China. This is Kim Il-sung. All right? He is the leader of North Korea. All right? Who's the current leader of North Korea?
Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, this is Un's grandpa. Okay, this is his grandpa. And then, of course, the leader of the United States is Truman. All right. Now, Korean War. Okay, Korean War breaks off, and really the Korean War is largely a continuation of World War II in a lot of sense. Remember, Japan occupied the Korean Peninsula during World War II. After World War II, the Soviet Union occupied north of the 38th parallel. The United States occupied south of the 38th parallel. This, of course, being the 38th parallel. All right. On June 25th, 1950, North Korea crossed the 38th parallel and attacked South Korea. Okay. Truman feels he has to respond because he's being labeled what? Soft on communism. All right. Let's actually roll this back so we can see it. So here is Il coming in. The United States gets involved, and we push up. Once we get past Pyongyang, China gets involved. And if you notice, China pushes us all the way back, and we kind of fight to right about here. Okay? Right about here, it becomes a bit of a stalemate. Now, if you notice, the war movement doesn't move, but the ticker keeps going. What happens, about a year and a half in to this war is it becomes what's known as a limited war. We kind of recognize that that unifying the peninsula is not worth escalation. How many allies do we have in this region of the world? How many strong allies do we have? England's trying to rebuild themselves. We don't really have any strong allies in this region. We got a lot of people that we're supposed to be, taking care of. Okay? But here we're fighting North Korea, we're fighting China, and if communism's a monolith, then we're also fighting who? The Soviet Union. Is that something we want to tangle with? No. Is that type of escalation worth unifying the Korean Peninsula? No. And so what happens here is there's a stalemate. We end up pulling out in 53. The Koreas are still locked against each other. Okay, they're still locked against each other. They still stare at each other across, this line. It's got a DMZ, and every single day they just stare at each other all day long. Okay, and there's always these threats and all kinds of other things going on. And my whole life, I've always heard of a North Korea as a nuclear threat. The more and more I study this stuff, yeah, of course, there is that threat, but I kind of look at it more. Anybody in here play chess? When you have two pawns that are stuck right in front of each other, other than a casual annoyance, does it really matter? That's the Korean issue. All right? Because at any time, China could come in and wipe out the peninsula. At any time, the United States could come in and wipe out the peninsula. Is it something that's important to anybody, though? Not really. Okay? And you know, it gives us great propaganda. That poster back there in the back, that's North Korean propaganda right there. A buddy of mine, I don't care, I'm outing you right now, on the World Wide Web. Buddy of mine lives in China, went to North Korea, pulled that off of a wall. Had it in his apartment. I was FaceTiming him. I was like, dude, what is that? He goes, sweet, right? I said, dude, you gotta take a picture of that and send it to me. He sent it to me. I made my own poster. I said, no names. And hopefully you don't die of the coronavirus and you get back home soon, where I can out you anymore. Ha! So that. Yeah. Now, we've got that going on. We are going to give a tremendous amount. Oh, and by the way, what do we use here in Korea? Yeah, we've been building up on our Air Force. Okay, and so we're going to really kind of flex our Air Force muscles here in Korea. Okay, but yeah, that's 50 to 53. Okay. It's like it's like that thing that never goes away, okay? That ever-present fear of communism, okay? We saw the first Red Scare when?
The 20s?
In the 20s. What was the catalyst of that fear?
Strikes.
The strikes. What was wrong with the strikes? Who said what about the strikers?
They're communists.
Who comes out and starts the propaganda campaign that all strikers in the 1920s are communists?
I don't know.
Which business?
Is it steel?
Steel. Okay, the steel industry. And who did we direct that fear towards? Immigrants coming with leftist ideologies. All right? We have a second Red Scare here. And largely, I kind of put the bookends on this thing from 50 to 54. And who are we afraid of right now?
Soviets.
The Soviets. Okay. We've got J. Edgar Hoover. Remember, J. Edgar Hoover was the original leader of the GID, which would eventually become what?
The CIA. The FBI.
FBI. You remember, that's all, a continuation of first Red Scare. We've got HUAC doing its thing. That's building up on the fear. But really, if we're looking for the true catalyst of the second Red Scare, it's none other than Joseph McCarthy. Okay? It's Joseph McCarthy. Before we get in there, I want to take a look at this picture. All right? Explain the funny out of the picture here on the left.
Communism is a monolith?
Exactly. Communism is a monolith. Now, what is the point of view of the artist on countries like North Korea, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, China?
They're all dead.
And what makes you say that they're dead to us?
The gravestones.
Yeah, they're illustrated as gravestones, right? On the monolith of the Soviet Union. Okay, so let's talk about crazy old Joe McCarthy. Okay, McCarthy. 1950, McCarthy becomes a freshman senator from the great state of Wisconsin. Right? Cheese curds, baby. They're good. Anybody had been up north, like Minnesota, Wisconsin area? Have some cheese curds?
I have.
Top notch. The squeakier the cheese curd, the better the cheese curd. And I know that sounds funny, but they think grits is funny. So, whatever. Anyway, 1950, McCarthy becomes a freshman senator from the great state of Wisconsin, and the dude needs an issue. Okay, the dude needs an issue to run on. Initially, he looked at crime being his issue, but crime had already been taken. He then, is looking at a couple other things. some of his friends suggest that he makes communism his issue, and he's like, I bet. February of 1950, McCarthy's going to make a speech. Okay, he makes a speech in West Virginia. In the midst of his speech, he comes out and he says, and in my hands I have a list. This is the list. Look at all the names. I've got a list of 205 confirmed communists working within the State Department. What's everybody going to do? Right? They freak out. How did that move? Right? And everybody freaks out. The next week, he's in a different town giving largely the same speech. The numbers change. Starts off 205. Next, it's 313. Then it's like 427. And people are freaking out. Okay, we've got communists within the state government. Joseph McCarthy in his guyliner says so. Therefore, it must be true. All right. Eventually, people are going to start questioning. Is what he's saying true? And he says, yeah, oh yeah. And so he switches up. Not only does he start going around with lists, he also starts going around with props. All right? If you look here, there is a communist organization, come February 1950, in every place where there's a black dot. Dawsonville, Georgia. Communist. You go up there, all those rednecks are sharing dip out of the same can, and they're sharing a gene pool. Clearly communist. Right? Clearly communist. Stop sharing. I don't care if it's caring. It's communist. So, yeah. Senate is eventually going to investigate McCarthy and say he's a fraud. Okay? Is that going to quiet him down? Nope. He's riding a wave of fear. And then in 1954, he kind of crosses the line and says that the Army, the United States Army, is communist. He says they do exactly what they're told. They all dress the same. They act the same. And they do not think for themselves. Therefore, they must be communist. The Army goes, all right, let's do this. Let's do this. From April to June of 1954, we're going to have the Army McCarthy hearings. Okay, we're going to have the Army McCarthy hearings. The Army McCarthy hearings were televised. Oh, wait, what new technology do we have?
TV.
A TV. And McCarthy looks like a total clown. Okay, he looks like a total clown. He is, he's sitting there, and the military officers are very stern and stoic and rigid. We are not communists. And then McCarthy's like, they are communists. And then he comes up and he starts making faces. You don't believe me? Go look. It's on YouTube. All right, just making faces at the camera. Dude looks like a total buffoon. All right, scowling at cameras. The Senate is going to vote to censure McCarthy. What does it mean if you are censured?
You shut up.
Bam! Slap on the wrist. McCarthy would not get reelected in 56, and then in 57, ironically, he would die of alcoholism. Now, the alcoholism part's not ironic. It's what his preferred drink of choice was. It was! Yeah. Vodka will kill you. The communist will kill you through vodka. All right? So, now, when McCarthy's done, so is the second Red Scare. Okay? McCarthy is to the second Red Scare as who is to the first Red Scare?
Steele.
Hoover.
That dude.
Who was that dude? The Attorney General. A. Mitchell
Palmer.
and Mitchell Palmer. Okay, and so those are, you know, your big catalysts, and we understand where the fear is being directed in both of these because, oh, look at that, they want you to do a lot of comparison in this unit. All right, cool. Hi.
How long do the hearings last?
Pardon?
How long do the hearings last?
The hearings from April to June of '54. And again, if we take a look at our dates of the second Red Scare, once he gets censured, because he's already been told that he's a fraud, and then when he gets censured, people are still fearful of communism, but you know, the big, you know, chorus of fear, so to speak, is over. Okay. Now, we're trying to feel good, man. We're trying to feel good about containment, and once the Korean issue is kind of settled, and we, in a sense, pull out of Korea, we're gonna have a hot minute before we're in another real active war. Okay, that does not mean that we're not doing anything. All right. People just don't know we're doing things because who's doing it?
CIA.
And what is the point of the CIA?
Plausible deniability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, provides us with plausible deniability. Okay, that's what it does. And we see a lot of this stuff taking place here. You know, give you guys an example of different things that the CIA was doing. Okay, we'll start off with this guy. All right, this is Arbenz. Okay, Arbenz was the democratically elected president of, where are we at? Guatemala. Okay. Was it Guatemala or was it Nicaragua? I'm pretty sure it's Guatemala. Let me double check. I got like books on books and notes. Yeah, 54, Guatemala. Arbenz was elected by popular vote. Arbenz there, if you're being elected by a popular vote, why would we take him out?
He's a communist.
We believe he's a communist. Okay, we believe he's a communist. And can we allow communism in our hemisphere? No. The reason why we think he's a communist is because a lot of the stuff he was saying a lot of the stuff that he was saying in his campaign, right? He was talking about things like, you know, we're going to redistribute land. All right, you start talking about redistributing any type of wealth, and people immediately label you as a what? A socialist or a communist. Okay. Now, the reality of what was going on in Guatemala at the time, 2% of the population. Again, 2% of the population owned 70% of the land. Think about that. 2% of the population owned 70% of the land. Most of that land was either owned or being managed by a company known as the United Fruit Company. All right? Now, the United Fruit Company was a major agricultural business and was a wildly popular investment by, well, those in Congress. All right? If Arbenz comes in and redistributes land, what happens to the profit margins of the UFC? It diminishes it. If we take Arbenz out and label him a communist or a socialist, is that good for our bottom line? Yeah, we pull them out. All right, we go in and we topple them. In fact, if we take a look at this map, every red country is a country that the CIA in the Cold War will do things in. In all those red countries, guess what company just made bank through the Cold War? The United Fruit Company. All right? Is it the U.S. government who's doing this? No. It's the CIA. It works autonomously of the government. All right? And again, we're doing these things. We're doing lots of these things. All right? Other things that we're doing. We're going to the Middle East. Why are we going to the Middle East?
Oil.
Well, oil's big. And you're on the right track, but why are we worried about the Middle East? Communism. Good. All right. If we take a look here, this is a more modern map. However, all this is the Soviet Union. Okay. That's what we're looking at. So the Soviet Union had come right down on the oil-rich Middle East. Okay. All these stands up here were Soviet satellite states. All right. And so, we're going to have a hyper focus on this area because we don't want the Soviet Union to get a hold of what? Oil. Okay? We don't want them to get ahead of oil. Now, we kind of take a look here. Draw cleaner lines here. Okay? There's our Soviet Union. Man, right here. There used to be an incredible wrestling tournament right there. It was like the toughest tournament in the world. Unreal. Anyway, really one of the big focuses, and again, more CIA stuff, Iran. Okay. You guys ever wondered why there's so much beef between the U.S. and Iran? If you listen to Bush too, he would say it's because they hate our freedom. Let's understand the history of that. Okay. 1953, the CIA and British Special Forces toppled the Iranian government. Okay. CIA and British Special Forces toppled the Iranian government because the Iranian government started interrupting the oil flow of a British oil company known as British Petroleum. Today we call British Petroleum BP. Okay, and so the Iranian government was impeding the flow of oil back to BP's rigs. So the CIA and the British Special Forces go in, topple the Iranian government, and then put a guy known as the Shah in power. Okay, we put the Shah in power. The Shah is pro-oil and anti-communism. He's not really necessarily pro-West, but he is pro-oil, and most importantly, he is
Non-communist.
we must support what?
Non-communist.
There you go. And so we feel like, all right, we got a puppet in Iran. Okay? Now, the Shah's going to be, our guy in there for really until 1979. Okay? And we're trying to make him our puppet. Okay? Now, one of the things that we will do. Hold, please. Nope. I don't know who you are. I don't answer. Anyway, one of the things we will do in the 1950s is start a program known as Atoms for Peace. All right? This is awesome. Okay? Atoms for Peace. Oh yeah, guess who this is?
The Shah.
That's the Shah. Okay? We're in a nuclear age. We want to keep the Soviet Union from getting down into the oil-rich Middle East. We have an ally in the Shah. And so we give Iran nuclear capabilities in the 1950s. All right? We take a look at the map there. We're giving them research reactors, uranium enrichment. We're helping them, mine uranium. We are giving them nuclear power. Is it difficult to move from nuclear power to nuclear weaponry? Not super difficult. I mean, it is for, probably everybody watching this video right now. But, you know, if that's your thing, you know, it can happen. Good idea, bad idea. Let's give Iran nuclear capabilities. Which one of our allies in the Middle East is going to just absolutely freak out? Not Turkey. I'll give you a hint. It's almost, I don't know if it's explicitly written, but it's definitely, you know, the tone is set. Death to Jews. Israel. Israel freaks out. Okay? Israel freaks out. We say, Israel, chill. We got you. And we give Israel a top-notch fleet of bombers. And we say, man, it sure would be unfortunate if something happened to all these facilities. Guess how many places bombs will get dropped on in Iran? 6. Is it hard to figure out what the CIA is doing here? No. Is this going to promote a healthy relationship with the U.S. and Iran? Now, Iran might say, I can't believe you did that. And we say,
It wasn't nice.
do what? Because the CIA provides us with plausible deniability. All right? Now, if you're starting to go, well, no wonder they don't like us. You just wait. All right? You just wait. There's moments. But we have to get to the 70s for that. Now, let's get into this election. Okay? Election of 52. Republicans. You know what? The people need, I need my campaign buttons. Top left drawer. You'll see which campaign buttons I need. Okay? Republicans got together in Chicago. They got a lot of big names. You've got, you know, Taft, not, you know, the big fat fatty Taft, but Mr. Republican Taft. He's, you know, in the Senate. He's, you know, beloved by all. But they're going to end up going with Ike. This is the one I want. Okay? Now, they're going to end up going with Ike. Where have we seen Ike?
World War II.
Mike and Ike's.
Not Mike and Ike's. World War II. Remember, I told you guys that Dwight Eisenhower, for all intents and purposes, what is his function in World War II? He is the master of invasion. Right? He's the one who planned the invasion for North Africa. He planned Sicily. He planned Italy. He planned D-Day. He's the one that led the troops into, well, he's the one that led the troops across the Rhine. Okay? He's a war hero. Do we love war heroes? Yes. Okay. Ike is going to get the nod, and he gets paired up with Richard Nixon. All right, he gets paired up with Richard Nixon. Where have we seen Nixon? HUAC, yeah. Now, pairing him up with Nixon is kind of big because it acknowledges the importance of the West. Nixon's from California. Nixon also appeals to young voters. All right, Nixon was a really good speaker. All right, and he connected well with the youth. The platform for the Republicans: a sharp attack on the Democrats. And this is when we really start calling the Democrats socialist. They're soft on communism. All right. We're going to attack democratic corruption, denounce containment. Remember by 52, are we still in Korea? Yeah, saying that's not working. And they're in favor of a civil rights plank. All right. Democrats got together in Chicago. Truman cannot run because we just passed the 22nd Amendment. I've mentioned 22nd before. What does 22nd Amendment do?
Only 2 terms.
2 terms or a max of?
8 years.
10. Max of 10 years. We talked about that, right?
No.
Yes.
if Mr. Mills is my vice president, all right, and I die 2 years and 1 day into my term, he then can be president for the remainder of that term, get elected and reelected. It's not 10 years, but let's call it 10 years. All right? If I die 1 year and 364 days in, he can serve the remainder of my term, but only have the chance to be elected once. Because if he got elected again, it'd be 10 years and a day, and 22nd Amendment says how many terms? 4 max.
Years.
Now, to get to that 10-year thing, it'd have to be some like crazy deep state, conspiracy stuff. But hey, man, I'm into it. All right, let's roll the dice and let the chaos roll, baby. Woo! Now, Democrats, they're going to go with Adlai Stevenson. Okay, Adlai Stevenson, all-name team member. He's going to get paired up with some dude from Alabama. They want to expand the deals, the New Deal, the Fair Deal. They want civil rights legislation. They want to extend Social Security. All right. Republicans are really going to use what's known as the K1C2 campaign. The 1K is Korea. Is Truman looking good in Korea? No. All right. Ike said that if he was elected president, he would go to Korea and he would solve the problem. That's a war hero saying that. Okay? The 2 C's, communism and corruption. Harry Truman is soft on communism. Under Harry Truman's watch, what has happened to communism?
Blown up.
It spread to where? China and
Korea.
North Korea. Okay? And then corruption. There was a lot of corruption. Okay? A lot of corruption. Corruption's kind of a big theme because the Democrats are then going to turn that back on Nixon. Okay? Democrats started investigating Nixon, accused Nixon of having a slush fund. You guys know what a slush fund is? It's money that's not yours. Okay, it's money that's not yours that is set up that you can use. It's all supposed to be hush money. They exist all over the place. They're illegal, but people still do it. Okay, and so when this gets revealed, Nixon or a lot of Republicans start demanding that Nixon be removed. Ike calls up Nixon and says, "Hey, yo, Nixon, you need to do something. All right, people want your head on a stick." And you need to put out a speech. You need to do something, all right? Nixon is, in a move of brilliance, is going to give the Checkers speech, all right? The Checkers speech, in which he goes out on TV. September 23rd, 1952, he gives the Checkers speech, takes out 30 minutes of primetime television, in which he explains the fund. He says he received no money personally. He said he used that money to pay for political expenses. It was not taxpayer money. Said he was honest. And in the air of being honest, he had to get something off his chest. As a politician, he has accepted a gift. And he's not willing to give it back. Because his children love that gift. And it was a little Cocker Spaniel puppy that they called Checkers. And at that point, everybody goes, "Oh, Dick loves puppies. I love Dick." And buttons like this start coming out. All right? Yeah, keep Dick on the job. All right?
You have to know that these are coupon products.
That's what she said.
Those are all real campaign buttons.
Last time it would get
Oh, here's another.
This time it'll get
Alright.
Dick on the job.
We can't win it.
Yeah. Now, mind you, this is your grandparents. So when your grandparents start to act all prudish, just go, Richard Nixon. Okay? So, Man, this checker speech saves Nixon. 58 million people heard the speech, and instantly TV becomes important in campaigning. Okay, we're gonna see TV be important. Ike keeps Dick on the job, and it saves his career. Okay, it saves his career. We take a look at the outcome of the election. Who wins?
Ike.
Ike. All right. Ike broke the Solid South. He takes 5 southern states. Republicans are also going to take slim majorities in Congress. So, can't make those buttons on. Yo.
What tactic did the Republicans use? It was like the
K1C2. Korea, communism, corruption. All right. Now, let's take a look at Ike and his first term issues. Okay. Ike, I like Ike, man. I do. I like Ike. I think Ike was a more than adequate president. And we're going to see a lot of movement, especially in civil rights during Ike's administration. All right. He's your quintessential Cold Warrior. All right. He was a war hero in World War II, and he is going to continue to be that steadfast leadership in the midst of a Cold War. All right. Now, to start off with, December of '52, once he is president-elect, Ike goes and visits Korea. He revived the stalled peace talks, and in July 1953, the armistice was signed and agreed to. Ike worked extensively behind the scenes to make sure that happened. Ike said, "I will solve the Korean issue." Did he do it? Boop, check. All right. In his first term, civil rights are going to dominate everything. Okay? Civil rights absolutely dominate his first term.
Can I
All
wear
right?
this around?
Hmm?
Can I wear this around?
No, those are my buttons. Those are mine.
I'm an origin.
All right. Now, yeah, it's time. Brown v. Board. Okay, I mentioned Brown v. Board. I don't know, like 60 years ago, and here we are. Brown v. Board, May 1954. The Brown versus Board of Education, and that is the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, ruled that separate but equal has no place in American society. All right? Says that separate but equal has no place. Brown versus Board effectively repeals what? Plessy versus Ferguson. Okay? This is going to be a unanimous 9-0 vote by the Supreme Court. The problem, there really was no enforcement. All right, there was no enforcement. And so what we're going to see is, 1 year later, May of '55, we're going to get what I call the Brown 2 decision. Okay, Brown 2 said that compliance had to be executed, quote unquote, with all deliberate speed. All right, and when we say compliance, we're talking about integration. Okay, integration had to be done with all deliberate speed. Ike wanted it to be slow and without federal assistance. Really, Ike's not going to endorse either decision. He really can't. All right? Politically, he can't. Because these are coming out in '55. What happens in '56? He's up for re-election. All right? In your first term, you just overturned a foundational piece of what has crafted the American reality in terms of society. All right? And so, he's got to kind of, play it close to the vest, so to speak. All right? He doesn't endorse either decision. Obviously, there's going to be widespread resistance. Where? In the South. Okay? The South is going to respond, and they're going to respond the exact way that I've already said they will respond. And it's through symbolism. Okay, it's through symbolism. What is the power of symbols in our society? What do symbols do? Exactly. Now it says right there, they create meaning and establish cultural norms.
How is race mixing even generally related to communism?
Doesn't matter if it is, but if you say it is, they're like, oh, it must be true.
That's right. Now, again, we talked about how the state of Georgia changed its flag in protest, right? Right? The Southern Manifesto gets together. This was the original Georgia flag. This becomes the new Georgia flag in a post-Brown v. Board decision. All right? With this Southern Manifesto, it is a declaration of opposition to the Brown decisions. And we're talking 19 of the 22 Southern senators are in on this. Okay? 19 of the 22 Southern senators are on, and they are accusing the Supreme Court of a clear abuse of judicial powers. All right? They're going to do things, symbolically, like change flags. We're going to have 5 states change their flags to include the stars and bars. And yes, the stars and bars were seen at 2 battles in the Civil War, but it has been used more by what organization in a mode of terror?
The Klan.
The Klan. That's where the hate part comes in. It's not the Civil War. It's how that symbol was used afterwards. All right? The 3 senators who do not, Kefauver, Al Gore Sr., and Lyndon Baines Johnson. All 3 will have long political careers. Okay? All 3 will have long political careers moving forward. Okay? But we see it, and we see people, protesting. Governor Falvis, and this is Alabama, save our Christian America. That sign right there drips of the same rhetoric of what previous organizations from the 1920s. Promising to protect white Christian womanhood. The Klan. Alright? And so, again, it's the symbols and how we use these symbols to generate the way we interpret the world around us and shape the way we behave. Alright? It's big. Now, we've got all this stuff going on. We've also still got to fight this Cold War. Okay? We've got to fight the Cold War. The U.S. begins to think that meeting with the Soviet Union is necessary. We had not sat down and met with the Soviet Union since the Potsdam Conference back in 1945. Why now, looking at the picture, why now might it be important for us to meet with the Soviet Union?
New leader.
Who's the new leader?
Khrushchev.
Khrushchev. All right. Stalin's out. Khrushchev is in. We got to test those waters. Okay. Let's take a look at the propaganda. That piece of propaganda really kind of highlights what? CWA. World domination, but you also can't do what? Yeah, you can't negotiate with them because what are they going to do? Stab you. All right? But it goes both ways. That's Soviet propaganda. What do they think? And you don't have to know how to read Russian. It's in the pictures.
Peace is a bomb.
Yeah. Do we trust them? Do they trust us? No. Okay? But in July of '55, we're going to get together in the Geneva Conference. The U.S., the Soviet Union, England, and France are all in attendance. Ike makes the opening statements condemning the Soviet Union. He says it is time for the Iron Curtain to fall. What is the Iron Curtain? The symbolic divide between East and West Europe. All right, they're not talking about the Berlin Wall. Okay, it's all symbolic rhetoric. Okay, but yeah, he comes out and says it is time for the curtain to come down. Is America going to love him for that?
Yes.
Yeah, because he's standing up to the communists. All right. Both the U.S. and the Soviet Union will propose arms limitations. Ike calls for open skies. The idea for open skies is we'll allow each other to fly over military installations in a surveillance proposal type deal. As soon as he says that, outside, lightning struck, thunder shook the building, the power went out. Real eerie. Ooh. Khrushchev says, nope, you're not flying over my country. I am in favor of on-site inspections. Personal guided tours of military installations. Are we interested in that? No. What happens at the Geneva Conference?
Nothing.
Nothing except for cultural exchanges. All right? When Ike comes back, he says we are entering into a quote-unquote new spirit of consolidation and consideration. What does that mean? It means nothing. It means people are stupid and Ike's approval rating shoots up over 70%. Okay? But it puts the shift back on the Cold War. Okay? Now, re-election time. Okay? Re-election time. Election of 56. Democrats get together in Chicago. They are going to go with all-name team duo. All right, there might not be a better all-name team grouping for president and vice president than Adlai Stevenson and Estes Kefauver. All right, the Democrats pulled out all the stops in the all-name team for this election. Republicans are staying with who? Yeah, Ike and Dick. And, well, we got, these ancient human beings promoting socialism. Are they going to get much love? No, not at all. See if there's anything I absolutely have to tell you. No, not really. Stevenson, man, Stevenson messed up. Sometimes you'll see a picture of Adlai Stevenson campaigning and he's sitting on a stage and he's got his foot up like this and he's got a big hole in the bottom of his shoe. And he was doing that to symbolize, look at how much I've walked. I mean, the dude traveled over 14,000 miles campaigning. What, are they going to spin it like he's blown through his shoes? No, they say he can't even take care of his own feet. How's he going to be able to take care of the country? All right. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a PR move gone bad. We'll take a look at the outcome of the election. Did I have anything to worry about?
No.
Not at all. Okay, not at all. Now, Ike's second term. This is when everything goes nuts. Okay, Ike's gonna have a crazy second term here. Today, for this video, what I want to get through today, we'll talk the CRAF 57, we'll talk the Little Rock 9, we'll talk the Ike system, but the rest of this stuff we're going to catch next week on the flip side. Okay, so, but yeah, you can see, it's chock full of a lot of different stuff going on here in the 50s. Oh, by the way, when was the last time we had an economic downturn?
The 30s.
29-30, right? When should we have one?
51.
Why don't we?
Korea.
Short wars do what?
Boost economy.
Boost economies. Thanks, Korea. And the 50s are known for having a very affluent society, which we'll get into once we start talking about boomers. All right. So, yeah, let's hit this stuff. Civil rights. 1956, right before the election, Ike is going to propose some civil rights legislation. A lot of people criticized him, said that he was just pushing this right before an election to get votes. They were wrong. He was solid on his civil rights stuff. He gets reelected and pushes the CRAF 57. Okay? CRAF 57, as it says there, gives federal protection for voting rights. Okay? Federal protection for voting rights. This right here is a popular, or was a popular, form of silent protest. Without saying a thing, what does that kid say? Exactly. Okay, if he was white, he could vote. All right, CRA of 57 gives federal protection for voting rights. The House is going to pass it pretty easily. The Senate filibusters. Strom Thurmond, he's one of like one of the most successful filibusters we've ever had in terms of just his stamina was incredible. Strom Thurmond, where have we seen him before?
The Dixiecrat.
The Dixiecrat guy. He is going to speak against this CRA for over 24 straight hours. Over 24 straight hours. And that's how filibusters work. Okay? You get time on the floor and you go. You don't have to talk about anything relevant. You just go. Who's the Zodiac killer?
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz, thank you. Ted Cruz filibustered something, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago at this point. He was filibustering something, and it was on C-SPAN. And he quite literally had an alarm go off on his watch. And as he was filibustering, he goes up, and now that's the alarm. And so now it's time to tuck my children into bed. And he pulls out like a Dr. Seuss book, reads it, standing up there in front of the whole Senate, and then looks directly at the camera and says, kids, I love you. I'm sorry that I couldn't come home, but Daddy's fighting the good fight. And he wishes his wife a good night and tells them good night, puts it away, and then starts railing against whatever he was railing against all over again. That's how filibusters work. All right? And in order to stop somebody from filibustering, you need a 2/3 vote from the Senate. Watch this. Dude, you can read. You can pull out like an encyclopedia. Just go. All right? It's a stalling technique. Okay? Now, Strom's going to filibuster this thing for over 24 hours. LBJ comes in for the rescue with negotiations. Okay? The big provisions. Okay? The big provisions of the CRA 57. Okay? One, it's going to create the Civil Rights Commission. Okay? And the job of the Civil Rights Commission is to go out and investigate race relations for 2 years and come back and report. What is the actual current state of race relations in this country? That's the first thing. The second thing is it creates the Civil Rights Division in the Justice Department. That is what ensures that right to vote. All right? That the Civil Rights Division in the Justice Department is going to be that entity that gives federal protection. All right? And the third thing, it is going to empower the Attorney General. Who's the Attorney General? The nation's top lawyer, to bring suit against vote foilers. All right? It's going to allow him to, the Attorney General to bring suit against vote foilers. What is a vote foiler? Someone who prevents people from voting. Give me an example in history of a vote foiler.
That one big dude.
Literacy tests.
Literacy test, poll taxes. Who's the character though?
Oh, it's
The Klan?
Jim Crow.
Not Jim Crow. You were right, the big guy.
The Ring, right?
Oh, Boss Tweed.
Boss Tweed, good, yeah, Boss Tweed. All examples of vote foilers in history. Okay, if you were charged as a vote foiler, you were being charged with criminal contempt, and you would get a trial by jury. The CRA of 57 is the first piece of civil rights legislation since Reconstruction. And to remind you, Reconstruction ended in 1877. Okay, so it's the first piece in what is, 80 years? 80 years? So, now, I do need to add a term. All right, it was on that last slide, SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference. All right, so I'm going to add a couple things here. All right, so we've got Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And we've got SNCC. All right, SNCC stands for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. All right, we've got the SCLC and we've got SNCC. Okay, now, armed with this CRA of 57, the SCLC is going to get to work on voter registration drives. Okay, the SCLC again is going to announce a voter registration drive. The goal, and again this comes out in 57, the goal is to register 2 million voters. What's up?
What was the name of the SCLC, or what did it?
The student one.
Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. SNCC.
Student.
Right? SNCC is the short. But yeah, like I said, they want to register something around 2 million voters. By the end of Ike's second term, the SCLC will be responsible for getting about 28% of Black America registered to vote. All right? And when you think about that, 28%, that's not very much. However, the black vote historically has been very concentrated. All right? It has been very concentrated, and as soon as, SCLC gets up and running, we're going to see the black vote being something that politicians have to cater to because it's such a concentrated vote. Now, we look at the SCLC picture, and its headquarters, who's the president of the SCLC? Martin Luther King Jr. Okay? This is where we really start to see him making moves. Martin Luther King Jr. was president of SCLC. SCLC, largely what it was Southern clergy members. All right? It was a lot of preachers getting together because, we talked about it before in here, the power that clergy have over their flock is incredible. Right? It's incredible. And it's going to help SCLC register people to vote. It's also going to help concentrate that vote. Okay? Now, as far as the civil rights movement goes, all right, SCLC is the organization. Okay? Because essentially what we have here is a rebellion. All right? Remember we talked a long time ago about riots, rebellions, and revolutions, right? What's the difference between a riot and a rebellion?
Right.
Organization. Rebellions have organizations, they have goals in mind. SCLC is that organizing force. SNCC are the foot soldiers. They are the SCLC organizes and places the protests and the marches and the riots. SNCC is participating. All right? They're the ones who are going to sit in and get their teeth kicked in. They're the ones who are going to march and be arrested. They're the ones who are going to go around trying to get people registered to vote. Yep. Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And with a name like Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, when you sit into the restaurant and ask for a Coca-Cola and somebody, dumps Coca-Cola on your head, how do you respond? Non-violently. Okay? You do this non-violently. Now, we've got all this going, and very quickly the focus of all the civil rights drama goes to Little Rock, Arkansas. Boom, right there. Okay, Little Rock, Arkansas. Arkansas becomes a civil rights focus. In 1956, in accordance with the Brown v. Board, the school board of Little Rock, Arkansas devised a plan for integration. All right, federal court approved of their plan and said you will begin to integrate in September of 1957. All right, September of 57. Now, that's the beginning of the school year. The governor The governor was Orville Faubus. Okay, the governor was Orville Faubus. Thank you. The governor was Orville Faubus, and if we take a look at his picture here, how does Orville Faubus? And he brings us, just in case you couldn't understand through his thick southern drawl, how does he feel about integration? He's not a fan. Okay, he's against racial integration of all schools in the Little Rock School District. Period. Okay. Faubus is going to ask for a postponement until after he was reelected. The court refused. All right, and when we talk about integration, we're not talking about taking a school that was all white and going 50-50. We're talking about taking Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, and allowing in 9 kids. We're talking about 9 black kids. That's it. We're not talking about, a 50-50, minority to majority type system. All right? We're talking 9. And before you start looking at it and go, Monty, that's 10 people. Yeah, I know. So what? Mama wanted to take a picture with her baby. You gonna tell Mama she can't take a picture with her baby? I don't think so. All right? Education has always cowered down to parents. All right? At least the politicians do. Now, when the Little Rock 9 tries to enter in September of '57, Faubus called 270 National Guardsmen to Central High School to prevent these students from coming in. All right? He had them at the door with bayonets attached to their rifles going, nope, you're not coming in. 270 National Guardsmen. Obviously, a huge uproar. All right, obviously a huge uproar. Faubus called Ike, said, Ike, yo, what do I do? Ike said, yo, dude, you got to get with the times. Times are changing. Either change or get out of the way. Let the kids in. Is Faubus going to let that happen? No. Okay. September, the National Guard would be removed by court order. All right. It is because of this incident that the National Guard gets federalized. All right. The governors no longer have absolute control over National Guardsmen anymore because of Faubus. All right. National Guard was removed. When the kids tried to enter again with the National Guard move, riots occurred on the front steps of Central High. The mayor, the mayor of Little Rock, calls up Faubus and goes, Faubus, man, you have created an absolute fecal storm. You need to fix this. He said, nope, it's your town, it's your problem. The mayor then calls Ike. Says, Ike, I need help. Ike sends in 1,000 paratroopers from the 101st Airborne Division. Where have we seen them before? Remember Battle of the Bulge? They were the ones that were stuck in Bastogne when they were asked, surrender on Christmas Day, and they replied back, nuts. All right? These are the baddest dudes we've got to jump out of airplanes, all right, in the military. And Ike's sending in 1,000 paratroopers. They're going to stay until November. Like I said before, the National Guard will get federalized. And then the guards, the same National Guardsmen who were preventing those kids from entering, now are sent back to protect these kids while they go to school. All right? It's crazy. Right? It really was a crazy event. And life was not easy for these kids. Okay? Life was not easy. It sucked. It absolutely sucked. The girls probably had it the worst. Not all 9 finished, by the way, at Central High. Several of them left. But the girls, high school girls tend to be mean. They tend to be mean. Guys do too, but girls can be nasty. And it was rough on the girls. There was one story of a girl who every day at lunch, she'd get her lunch tray, she'd sit down all by herself, and there was this one little group of mean girls that would come and sit beside her or behind her and just talk trash. Make fun of her clothes, make fun of her hair, make fun of her nose, make fun of the way she talked, make fun of the way she walked, make fun of everything they could, just picking. Every single day the girl would get up, go to another table. After like a month of this happening, girl, comes over, and she stands up, and the girls go, oh, yeah, let's all get up and follow her. She puts her tray down, she turns around and says, listen, you don't have to like me, but please just leave me alone. I'm not trying to interact with you. Just leave me alone and let me eat lunch. And she sat down and finished her lunch. The very next day, girls started at her again. She stands up, picks up her lunch tray, starts to turn around. The girls go, oh, leave me alone, you're picking on me. She dumps all of her food, whap! Slaps the girl across the face with a lunch tray. She gets expelled from school. All right? Another girl. And again, you got to remember, class change is the most dangerous part. All right? Class change has got to be the most dangerous part. Now, you've also got National Guardsmen with you. All right? But one of these girls was walking down the hall, down the science hall, and a little girl came out with like a beaker of acid and tossed it into her face. All right? Luckily, National Guardsman was there, ran her over to the water fountain, and splashed, water in her eyes to get it out. But the little white girl, nothing happened to her. Nothing happened to her. She had to write a paper on lab safety. But this is what people are having to deal with. I mean, imagine every single day you're walking into school and you have to deal with this. Now, let me give you a life tip. This isn't the one you have to worry about. All right? The one that talks a lot and opens their mouth real wide, you catch them with one solid hit to the button right there on the corner of the mouth, and they will crumble. The ones you got to worry about are the strong, silent types. The one that looks like, the all-city linebacker. All right? That's the one you got to worry about. Okay? But yeah, this is rough. Now, the kids that would make their way through Central High would all be given full ride scholarships to University of Arkansas. Okay? But, this is what people are having to deal with. And this is the type of ugliness that is going to be revealed when you change the status quo. When you change these foundational ideas of how to behave and how to understand each other, it's going to go through a very, very ugly period. All right? I'm not going to get into the Ike system. We're running up close on time. And I'm sure all my people on the World Wide Web have got lots of questions. All I can suggest is that you just fluff up your mustache a little bit and watch it again. Peace!